Hello friends, I am Dr. Subodh Kesharwani working with Indira Gandhi National Open University in School of Management Studies. The topic which I am going to talk today is research methods. Before going into the depth of this topic, I just want to throw a light that we have already taken two important sessions which was talking on the preamble of research. One was the research methodology and second was FAQs of research. Frequently asked questions is going to play a very important role as far as research is concerned, because when we pursue our research, when we start our research, there are such certain questions which comes in our mind, that how we can initiate a research and how we can accomplish it, because it's a very challenging task when you enroll yourself into a research. So this research methodology, research FAQs is going to play a very important role as far as this particular course is concerned, which we usually call MCO-03, Research Methodology and Statistical Analysis, which is part of our Masters in Commerce program, and this is a second year course. And while going into the depth, you will find out that research methodology is very important, because if you not generate the methodology or the modus operandi, you will not land up at the right location. So research, while talking about the research methodology and research FAQs, we are just concentrating on what are the certain methods which can initiate a research. When you start a research, when you start framing a questionnaire, how you are going to communicate to your respondents, and what are the the pedagogy which need to be followed. Like it could be interview based, it could be survey based, or it could be case study based, or the one-to-one interaction is there. Today we are more talking about the technology enabled model. So how technology is going to facilitate us in extracting the data, in collecting the data, because these are certain parameters which are going to play a very important role. So anyway, we will definitely throw a light on what exactly the research methods is. And if you see this particular image, you will just come to the conclusion that end of the day, the intention behind the research is to just hit the target. And if you are able to achieve the target or hit the target at the right time with the right pace, I think the research is going to be accomplished. Because when you go more into the depth of research, though it's a time-taking activity, but there are certain time frame which had been given. Like when we accomplish our dissertation, or when we go into the process of finalizing our dissertation, which is a basic ingredient for the master students. So there the research is going to play a very important role. The intention behind the research is not to do the research or do the window dressing, but come to the conclusion where things are going to be going to give certain results. And if the results are fruitful, results are productive, definitely it is going to helpful to the future researchers. Because when you do a good research, your literature is going to be cited well, it is going to be read by a lot of individuals, and then from there the others can appreciate your work, appreciate your effort, and finally this is the way by which the things are going to be done. So the research methodology, if you are following the appropriate research methodology, you can go to the conclusion that that leads to a platform for the future researchers. So anyway, we are going to talk more about this particular thing, and in a more appropriate manner, in a gradual way. So if you see this particular image, you will find out that there are some small circles, there are some bigger circles, and there are some inside circles. So if you see the bigger circle, it talks about the research philosophy. If you see the next circle, it talks about the research approaches, then research strategies, then the horizon, and data collection methodologies. So if you see this particular image, you will find out that we start from research philosophy, then research approaches, and then research strategies, and finally lead to the data collection methods. So data collection, what I was talking of, it's based on the sampling, secondary data, observation, interviews, questionnaires, or the case study, or the virtual way of collecting a data. Right now, the way things had been changed, we have moved from the different way, brick and mortar way, to the more contemporary way. There we have observed that this pedagogy of data collection has changed. The mindset had changed. Now as far as the interview concerned, you don't have to physically make yourself present and extract the information from the respondents. You can very easily interact with the virtual meeting tools, and from there you can interact with them, record it, and get the observation, and then accomplish your task. So this is the model, this is the pedagogy which is going to play a very important role. And what we have seen that when you talk about the research strategies sometimes talk about the survey, the case study, or the ground theory, or so while going into the depth of this particular presentation today, we will see that how the methodology is going to be changed and what are the utilities of the certain methodologies. Somewhere we have observed that interview methodology is quite good as far as the data collection is concerned, but somewhere the text format is going to play a very vital role, and somewhere interview tactics or the virtual interaction or virtual meet is going to play a very important role. So this is something which is definitely going to add a feather in our cap, and gradually we will see that how the things are going to be changed. And if you see that these chosen methods and techniques are the best fit for the research aims and objectives and will provide valid and reliable results, that is very true, because when you are going into or applying this certain pedagogy, certain methodologies, you lead to a very important discussions, or you come up with the first hand informations. I think when you are talking about the data collection, the primary data and secondary data is going to play a very important role. Sometimes the secondary data is very important, but on the other hand, in 70 to 80% cases we have observed that primary data is something which is going to be a benchmark. So when you are going to collect a data, I think much emphasis would be given on collection through the primary mode, that is first hand information, and genuine the collection of data, or genuine data is going to be come up when you are going to have a first hand information or one-to-one interaction. So it could be interview based, it could be floating the questionnaire on the web, somebody can put the details on that. So these are the pedagogy by which the things are going to be occurred. A good research methodology provides scientifically sound findings, whereas a poor methodology does not. So research methodology is very important, and there is no such rocket science or thumb rule behind it that you have decided that the interview mode could be one of the best mode. Sometimes the observational mode could be a better way to interact with the respondents, whereas sometimes what we observe that the secondary data is going to work as a backbone. So we have to see, and sampling and this universal how we are going to find out that what could be the sample size from the the chosen universal. So that is all going to play a very important role, and there must be some thumb rule behind it. And when you are going to depth of the research, when we talk about in our coming lectures or in the preceding lectures what we have covered, we see that there are certain terminologies which are omnipresent in nature, and these terminologies are frequently coming up, like the sampling, the universal or secondary data, primary data, hypothesis, or the test which we are going to apply, or the outliers or averages or measure of center tendency or correlation and regression. So these are the probability model. So these are certain terminologies which are very important when you are going to pursue research or start your research. So we have to take care that how we are going to use it. It's not like that that you are adhered to the particular framework and you can just rigid to that. And rigidness is something sometimes create a big issue. So we have to be quite friendly as far as the learning is concerned, as far as applying the tool is concerned, and we try to be quite flexible into it. So very easily, if we think that some of the modalities, some of the model is going to play a very important role, we just adhere to that. So I think we will see that how the things are going to be changed. And when you are talking more, because primary research is going to play a very important role, because if you emphasize your research on the secondary data, I think there may be change, as we know that there are change in the respondents. Like somebody have done a research in a Western world about the consumer behaviors vis-a-vis e-commerce, and the similar kind of research you are doing in India with of the consumer behavior who have vis-a-vis e-commerce. I think there, if you emphasize yourself with the secondary data, the purpose is not going to resolve, because the consumers who are in the Western world, who are in America, Germany, or in France, they have a different mindset, and they are the one who are pioneer in using the e-commerce. They are more acquainted with the e-commerce. But when you talk about the present consumers of India, you will find out that they are not so acquainted with the e-commerce. And if you are going to collect the data, the pedagogy need to be different, and you have to cater yourself, you have to just emphasize yourself to the metropolitan cities, and because, or the cities where they are frequently using the e-commerce. If you go to rural areas where there is no internet, no question of e-commerce, and there if you try to collect the data, I think the data will be biased or fake, or it's not going to solve the purpose. So this primary research is going to play a very important role, and when you're collecting when you're doing the primary research, when you're collecting the primary data, these primary data are quite helpful, and these are going to give you the different results. So when I was talking about my FAQs, at that time I have talked about certain steps how one can start, and we have seen that literature review is one of the important ingredients. Then we have certain gaps. From that we explore the objectives, and then we frame the questionnaires or frame the hypothesis, and the journey starts. So this is the real way of initiating a research. So the primary research is no doubt going to play a very important role, because it is based on the definition, methods, advantages and examples, and whether you are trying to get the basics of statistics and how to conduct statistical tests or use a statistical software. This is also need to be defined, or need to be taken care in a more strategic manner. So what I mean to say that how you are going to use the statistical software, when you are going to use, when the data is going to be collected, then you are going to use, or you are going to use in the preliminary stage. All those the plan of actions, all those the way of doing the things need to be framed in the very beginning, or very strategically planned. And planning is no doubt going to play a very important role, because the moment you start the research, moment you start working on it, it's really a very cumbersome process, and sometimes we observe that the morale of the individual and morale of the researchers somewhat deteriorated, because they are not going to get the appropriate results, or maybe the respondents are not reciprocating in the manner they need to be do. So in that case, what we have to do, we have to quite patientful, and we have to do the things in a more strategic manner, and we also have to keep the morale up of the respondents also. If you are going to follow the big bang approach, that is putting or dumping all the questions in one shot, no, I think respondents will be the one who could be away from reciprocating. So best part is that try to have a certain questions which should be in phases. So, or maybe in the first stage some questions are there which can be quite generic in nature, whereas in the second some close-ended questions are there, because if you are having a close-ended questions in your questionnaires, I think there will be chances that more reciprocation can come, because it could be in a MCQ model, or yes or no option is there. Whereas if you have an open-ended model, open-ended questions, then in that case respondent have to write, and when the question of writing comes, sometimes they make themselves away, because it's really tough for them to write so many lines. So if you are asking for the close-ended questions, I think there are certain points which need to be framed in such a manner that it can directly hit to the consumers, that these are the the gaps, these are the turning points, and these are the points where one can very easily change themselves. So what I mean to say that that one has to take care of all those things. And if you see this particular unit which I am talking, this is the first unit, and prior to that we have 2-3 preamble lectures. It was just throwing the light on the concept part of the research. But if you see this particular unit, that is the first unit, Introduction to Business Research, it starts with the meaning of research, then meaning of science, how this technology, how the science, or the statistics, which we usually call, is going to help to the researchers. If you see in the present scenario, the SPSS software which had been developed by the IBM, that is software package for the social sciences, and it's going to be quite important, because research is now a domain for the scientists or the engineers, but it had crosses the wear boots, and now you see everywhere, every domain, every sector, every segment, either it could be a business or the social science or history, the research is going to play a very important role. So research is an art, is a science, and it is not for the scientists, it is for the general public, for the general audience, and business houses, the corporate world are taking a great help of the research. So knowledge and science is very important, and when we talk about the knowledge, I think we know that in research the data is going to play a very important role, and if you go more into depth of the data, you will find out there is a data, there is a information, there is a knowledge, and there is a wisdom. So this is the four integrated layer. It starts with the data, then information, then knowledge and wisdom. So knowledge is going to play a very important role, and data is always raw, always scattered, and you find out that these data are sometimes quite scattered in nature, and when you are going to convert the data, when you are going to regulate the data, because the biggest challenge which comes that the gigantic shape of the data. The data we usually see, it's very haphazard in nature, very scattered, and when you are going to accumulate it, I think it's really a cumbersome process, and that is where the research is going to play a very important role, because if you see, it starts with and analysis and analytics, and algorithm is going to play a very important role. If you see this e-commerce portals, or the business houses, how they are gathering or taking care about the consumers' data, and the real-time data, they are using it and come to the conclusion about that. So there, this knowledge and science is going to play an important role, because when the data is of billions in nature, which are billions in size or millions in size, it's really tough for the humans to regulate it. So there the science comes into picture, the statistics comes into picture. Then you have inductive and deductive logic, and then finally what happens, significance of research in business comes, because when you talk about the business, and when we know that that business is something which is the bread and butter of the individuals, of the corporates, and it's going to affect the GDP of the country. And so if there could not be no business, there will be no generation of amount and no taxes, and finally what happen, then the livelihood going to be affected by that. So this is somewhere the research significance comes up, because research is somewhat creating a new options, new paradigm shift, and with the help of research the business also excels. So that is the reason that those companies, those organizations who are doing the research, they are creating a niche, and those who are not doing, they are on the deathbeds and they evaporate from the systems. So that is the reason you have observed that the shelf life of the company is deteriorating with the change of time. So now this kind of pedagogy had come up, where we have observed that research is not which is going to be important for the academicians or for the teachers or for the scientists, but for the business houses. And you see the good companies, they do a lot of research, and they try to imbibe the new technology, and finally what happens when they introduce new technology, and which is going to benefit the society or the consumers by and large, somewhere they are getting an edge, and finally by that they can excel their business. So anyway, we will definitely throw a light about how the technology is going to play a business in our different lectures. Here just we are emphasizing on the research, and then types of research comes. So research, we have seen that it's of variety of types, and then methods of research is very important, because survey method, observational method, case method, experimental method, historical method is also applicable, where the stereotype approach is still there, because you can't eliminate the legacy systems or the stereotype approaches. Then comparative method is also very important, because sometimes we compare that which could be more blended in nature, and have a combination of the various methods like survey and interview could be come together, and observation and case study could be come together. So anyway, and there are certain stumbling blocks as far as the business research is concerned, because the cost is going to be quite important, and it's really cumbersome for the company to invest massively on the research, because when you talk about the research, it have a long-term impact, and when you have a long-term impact, sometimes what happens, your short-term goals become affected. So how you are going to bridge the gap between the long-term and short-term, this is where the business research is going to play a very important role, and how to come out from that. So we will definitely talk about all those aspects, and try to touch the different parameters, so that our learners can more acquaint with the certain terminologies, and they are going to use it in a real life scenarios when they are starting their research or pursuing their research. So research method is a broad term, the most important elements of research methodology expected to be covered in business dissertations at bachelor's, master's and PhD level, because whatever the concept you build in the bachelor's, in your undergraduates, is carry forward to the master's degree, and then finally in PhD levels you try to interrelate all those things and come to the conclusion. So the basic, the foundation, or the basic framework starts when you are in the undergraduate, and this includes the research philosophy, types of research, research approach, methods of data collection, and there are certain ways by which the data is going to be collected, and we will see in our forthcoming presentations what are the pedagogy of collecting a data or interpreting the data, and how we are going to use the data. That also matters, and sampling and ethical consideration is also very important, because when you talk about the research, I think this ethical issues is going to play a very important role. There is a term called plagiarism which had been entered in the academic world or in the literary world, where if you are going to copy the content, if you are going to use the existing content which had been written by someone else, and you are not going to acknowledge it in an appropriate manner, or the disclaimer had not been used, you would be in trouble. So ethical consideration is very important, and for that, how much you are going to copy and how much you are going to acknowledge, and what are the ways by which you are going to do that, because today the scenario talks about the openness, and when you are talking about the search engines have made everything open. So if you are going to copy the content, if you are going to use the content without acknowledging anybody's work, I think there would be chances of being in trouble, and it could be a serious, having a very serious implications. So how we are going to take care, that is more important. So while talking about the research methodologies, you have to see what are the ethical considerations, and it's not like the question of plagiarism. Sometimes what happens when we are doing a research which is related to my employer organization or my the organization where I am working, I think there are certain protocols which one has to maintain, and there are certain things which need not to be shared with the third party or to the respondents. So there some ethical issues need to be taken care, so that the privacy and security of the organization is also keep in. So if you see this type of research data collection techniques, it starts with the research data, then we have secondary and primary data. Secondary data are the data which are usually second in nature, already published by someone, already somebody had done a research, somebody had done a first hand research and then floated on the website or published in a print format, so that others can use it for their research purpose. So this is the secondary data which had already been done by someone else. And when you talk about the primary data is where our emphasis is. As a researcher, our emphasis is more on the quantitative data and qualitative data. When you talk about the quantitative data, it could be through survey data, observation and experimental. So and more talking about the quantity and experiment, it could be more experimental, observational, whereas when you talk about in quantitative, we have a survey data and then personal interview and telephonic interview, and right now the virtual way of collecting the information is also a part of the survey data. So this, if you talk about qualitative data, it is more talking about the focus group interview, depth interview and projective techniques. So one-to-one things are there. So we will see how this qualitative and quantitative differs from each other. We will take some good examples which can more elaborate the questions or the frequently asked questions which comes in our user's mind. So the main data collection, if you see, is the interview, which can be unstructured, semi-structured or structured, whereas focus groups and group interviews are there. Survey could be online or physical. When you talk about the physical survey, you find out the gap. On the basis of gap, you develop the objectives. Then the hypothesis created on the basis of this objectives, and hypothesis could be of different nature. And then on the basis of hypothesis, you start framing the questions. And then the moment you frame the questionnaires, either you send it in a physical way, in a hard copy, or through online, that is through Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, or there are some other ways. Some other tools are coming with the change of time. And And if you talk about the business houses, the e-commerce portals or the commerce trade industries, they are also using this online way of doing the things, but in a more uh, isolate manner. That is, some questions are asked in the very beginning, and some are gradually asked. So observations, documents and records, and then case study is there. Case study somewhat, sometimes would be more secondary database, whereas already, a lot of people had reframed the cases, developed the cases, and then you are going to extract the information from those case studies. And you have got, the baskets of informations, or ample number of information is there, and from there you just narrow down yourself and finding out, the certain gaps, and then on the basis of these gaps, then you start working. So when you talk about the case study base, it could be somewhat more blended in nature. It could be primary or secondary, or a combination of both. So if you see interviews, if you talk about, according to McNamara 1990, interviews are particularly useful for getting the story and behind the participant experience. The interviewer can pursue in-depth information around the topic, and interviews may be useful as follow-up to certain respondents. So what we have seen that are quite useful, because the first-hand information is coming directly from the individuals who are affected, or part of that process, and then you start recording it, like what we observed that as far as certain e-commerce portals have concerned, that when consumers buy any product. Now there was a time when we studied marketing about the mouth marketing philosophy, where consumers buy any product, and we usually ask in a mouth marketing mode that what exactly you think about the particular product. But here, since the customers are located different place, they are doing the shopping through one portals. Now the portals are creating archives of the consumers' opinions, and these sometimes it is adverse, sometimes it is favorable. So they float it on the particular portals, and when any consumers used to go for the particular buying of that product, they usually go through and see the reviews. And now reviews can very easily provide the information that what exactly they think about the product, what are their experience about the product, what are their pre-experience about the product, what are their post-experience about the product, whether they are adhered to the refund policy, or this kind of phenomena is there. And sometimes we are able to knowing about the opinion about the particular product, because we observe that sometimes the product are quite old, and sometimes the new company entered into a market with a new thought, and there is no such evidence about the particular product. So in that case, what is going on, that we just see the opinion and know the exact picture about the product. So this is the way by which the things are going to be done. And if you see the types of interview in research, this is email interviews, there are email interviews, there are web interviews, there are personal interviews, and there are telephonic interviews. And on the other hand, we have seen that web interviews is right now very important, because there is a lockdown stage, and COVID-19 was there, and people are at their homes, and this web interviews and web interaction is going to play a very important role. So technology enabled research had come up, email interviews are there, and telephonic interviews is quite common, but somewhat it had changes and taken a shape of a virtual way of interacting the things. So there are certain advantages of interview method. If you see opportunity for feedback, interviewer can provide direct feedback to the respondents, give clarifications. This is an opportunity for the feedback, and probing complex answers. So interviewers can investigate if the respondent's answer is too brief or unclear. This gives interviewers some flexibility in dealing with unstructured questions. So what I mean to say is, there are close-ended questions, there are open-ended questions, there are some unstructured questions. Some questions need to be answered, some are creating a different issue. In that case, how they are going to tackle is very important. And then length of interview, because I think the patience is very important as far as respondent is concerned. If the respondents are not able to because if the respondents are getting the long question to answer, sometimes they deviate from that. So the questions and the interview could be planned in such a manner that it could not be very lengthy. The personal interview is the best technique for getting respondents to cooperate without overtaxing their patience. So when you talk about the survey method is the technique of gathering data by asking questions to people who are thought to have desired information. A formal list of questions is prepared. Generally, a non-disguised approach is used, and the respondents are asked to question on their demographic interests of opinion. So, survey we have seen that sometimes observation method is supplemented with survey method, and this approach is most suited for gathering descriptive information. And this research may direct or indirect. That is very true. And because to get the detailed information, the survey method need to be done, and there are certain ways by which the survey method need to be done. That is, through newsletter, through survey and polls, through event management. Third party is going to be hired. In election, we observed that the political parties used to hire, the certain research groups, or the polling agencies, exit polling agencies. They give their surveys. Then there are certain analytics which are used. Certain, the past data is going to be, interlinked with the machine learning or deep learning or artificial intelligence. Then these, analytics are going to be play a very important role with the help of algorithm used. So survey method is very important. And then we have observation method. The two main methods by which primary data can be collected are observations and communications, because end of the day the intention behind is to more emphasize on the primary data, and observation is the act of recognizing nothing facts or occurrence, so no questions are asked in data collection. Observation method can be used to study the various things like the sales techniques, the customer movement, customer response in retail stores, and what exactly they are thinking about the product, and how the company can revamp the product, how the company can change the product, and the style and acceptance also is going to be, and what are the trend which is coming up. The taste about the consumers varies, and there are different age brackets of the consumers. Some consumers are the consumers who are in the bracket of 18 to 24. They have got a different mindset, different approach. Whereas the consumers who are of old age, they have got a different approach, and the middle level age brackets people have got different approach. So the working people have got a different approach. The teenagers or the school going kids have different, or the college going kids have different. So this observation method is more emphasizing all these factors, and taking into consideration all the parameters which are very important. So there are certain importance of the observation method. This method is very useful when the observer has to form hypothesis, and hypothesis is very important because the moment you explore the gap, on the basis of gap you find out certain objectives, then you create the hypothesis. And hypothesis should not be multiple numbers. It could be always in the fingertips, 4 or 5 or 7, something like that. And this hypothesis can design or decide how your research is going to be done, because you start with a null hypothesis, then you have alternate hypothesis, and you have to see whether alternate hypothesis is fine or the null hypothesis is not effective. So this is where the things are going to be done. The results are reliable, and pure scientific observation need to be done, and here the mathematics is going to be used. And when you talk about the qualities, these qualities are there only if controlled observation method is used. And scientific observation is universal, and we can verify the results of controlled observation. The result which we get with the help of controlled observation is free from bias, prejudice, and interest of the members. When you are going to do the research, the intention should not be that you are going to accomplish or do your thesis. The intention is that you are going to benefit the society by and large, and it is going to affect the masses or benefit the masses. So if somebody is doing the research on the consumer behaviors, I think the behavior needs to be properly documented, because if the behavior research had been done, if the consumer behavior research is more strategically done, I think you get a very good results, and this is going to helpful to the society by and large. And that is the reason we have observed that the e-commerce portal always follow the pull approach. I think in management, in marketing, we study the pull approach and push approach. Push approach is more supplier centric, more institutional centric, whereas pull approach is more consumer centric, more student centric. It provides complete roof to the individuals to think of and get what exactly they are thinking about it. So pull approach is more talking about the society by and large, and talks about the customization, the tailor-made approach, and the approach which could be friendly to all or fruitful to all. So the case study research is the essence of a case study. The central tendency among all types of case studies is that it tries to illuminate a decision or set of decisions, why they were taken, how they were implemented, and with what results. So there are certain the case studies, there are certain the written document which is there, and this is working as a benchmark while the other research need to be done. So if you see the case study as a research method is a very popular, is respected in the academic world, has a large pragmatic flexibility, presents a high theory testing and theory building potential, and can be based on 4 main research methods. I think when somebody just accumulate the data of the particular year, like from 2018 to 2020, what exactly how the trend of the consumers had been changed. There the case study of the consumers who have bought the product from different sources, from brick and mortar stores, from click and mortar stores, or from e-commerce or m-commerce portal, it's going to be quite important. So if somebody is doing the research about the trend and behavior about the consumers vis-a-vis the commerce or change in commerce, there some case study is very important. So that is where the purpose and procedure is going to be important to determine the factors, if you talk about the purpose and relationship among the factors that have resulted in current behavior status of subjects, whereas focus is on a single subject or unit. And when you talk about the procedure, I think determine the case, individual group or environment to study, and determine data collection strategies and data to be collected. That is, collect the data, analyze the data, how to use the data, and these are certain pedagogy which need to be implemented. So I think we have talked a lot about research methods. We have started with the glimpse about the research, then talks about certain methods of research, which could be survey method, observational, interview, case study, and the virtual way of methodology is there. So in our coming lectures, we are definitely going to talk about the certain terms which are a driving force behind executing a research or influencing a research. Because when anybody complete his masters or enroll themselves into in a doctoral program, research methodology or research method is a very important ingredient, and this can go on and on always. So research method is not like that that you can study in this particular paper. It's going to be applicable once you do more research, or just start exploring the research in a more strategic manner. I think in our coming lectures we are going to talk more about the different ways of research. Thank you very much. Thank you.